The world's most deliberative body takes on Facebook, and the most aghast senators then post their outrage on Facebook. I'm Leland Vittert. Good evening. Mark Zuckerberg is having an awful week, and it is only Tuesday. In the past 48 hours, 60 Minutes did a special Facebook whistleblower segment. His social media empire went offline for 6 hours because of an internal mistake, and the U.S. Senate held hearings about his creation, taking testimony from a former Facebook employee, now dubbed, as we described it, a whistleblower.
In the end, the buck stops with Mark. There is no one currently holding Mark accountable but himself.
That's not true on a number of levels, and here we like to deal in truth. Zuckerberg and Facebook are accountable to the laws of the United States, which so far nobody has accused them of breaking. He's accountable to his shareholders, who are thrilled with the company's performance. He's accountable to his customers, namely the advertisers who keep buying ads, and to the users, all of us, who keep posting and commenting. Senators treated Frances Haugen, the woman you just saw there, as a woman of great moral courage, as she said Facebook knows its algorithms play to our worst human instincts and then exploit them to increase engagement.
There are going to be women walking around this planet in 60 years with brittle bones because of choices that Facebook made around emphasizing profit today. Or there are going to be women when they're in 20 years who want to have babies who can't because they're infertile as a result of eating disorders today.
Senator Marsha Blackburn, Republican of Tennessee, then pounced.
Facebook prioritizes profit over the well-being of children and all users. So as a mother and a grandmother, this is an issue that is of particular concern to me.
You might think someone so outraged would actually do something about it. Well, she has, posting 8 times on Facebook today about how upset she is. Her combined social media reach, 491,000 followers, 593 posts last month. That is an average social media posting of 19 per day. There are a few angles to this story. Jorge Ventura will tell us how human traffickers are using Facebook to sell their services. Colby Hall takes a look at the media's fawning coverage of today's hearing. But we start with a good friend, Mercedes Schlapp, about whether Congress will do anything about it. Nice to see you, as always. Is the government the best regulator here, or should we trust the American consumer?
Well, let's remember, Leland, that the Facebook lobbying branch alone, they spend so much money that they feed into these politicians' pockets in terms of their campaigns that many of these politicians are very much reliable on the big tech money, including Facebook, for them to get reelected. So it's going to be a big challenge. We know that there's been talk for a long time, and especially during President Trump's presidency, of trying to break up these social media companies, try to regulate these media companies, and Congress has failed time and time again. So while they keep having these hearings, and you have obviously this brave woman who came out as a whistleblower, and you've had Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, all these big tech titans come in and have to respond to the harsh questions of the senators, they just get a slap in the hand, and they really don't get penalized for what we're seeing is, I find, a dangerous trend on what the impacts that social media is having on our children.
Okay, fair enough. And you as a parent, I think, is it to 5 kids?
That is right.
5.
Yeah.
Okay, so isn't it the job of a parent, though, to keep the bad influences of social media and sugary cereal and too much video games out of their kids' hands, or is it the government's job?
Well, absolutely. Look, I really look as a parent, you know, and my kids that, you know, I have an 18-year-old now, so we always have these conversations about social media and the responsibility if one is on social media. I do believe that when you started hearing Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook talk about an Instagram for 13-year-olds and younger, that is incredibly disturbing. There's no need for that, and the parents have a responsibility to monitor what is happening in their children's lives, and to also say no to the children when it comes to them wanting to get on social media. I mean, it's very basic. But the reality is that I do think that the whistleblower did at least unravel what we're seeing in terms of how their social media platform is impacting the lives of young children, especially young girls, where they look at social media as a way that they have to deal with issues like body imaging, eating disorders. And these are issues we need to talk about. And I think that it is appropriate to bring this up at the federal level, and also for Facebook to take responsibility and make changes that help to produce a healthier and a better society. But what I'm more concerned about is the Chinese propaganda, the terrorist leaders that are able to use Facebook as a tool. And the fact is that that's where you have to have the government working with Facebook to make sure that there's the appropriate counterterrorism measures that we need and national security measures that we need to stop this type of propaganda.
There's a reasonable point. If you can ban President Trump, how come you can't ban terrorist propaganda? Somehow their algorithms have not figured that out, I guess. But Senator Cruz talked about this as it related to some of the issues you just discussed, specifically to how Facebook's algorithms and Instagram, which Facebook owns, deals with young women and the data and the pictures that show up. Take a listen.
Do you know of any context that would make those data anything other than horrifying and deeply disturbing?
Engagement-based ranking and these processes of amplification, they impact all users of Facebook.
And as Ted Cruz took a sip of coffee there, go ahead and take a look at Ted Cruz's Facebook page just moments after the hearing. He was asking for money and fundraising on Facebook while promoting how he was attacking Facebook.
You know, we're all victims of the social media. And you bring up a great point, Leland. This goes back to my thing.
It is horrifying, but please give me money. Like, come on.
But here's the deal. Here's how it works. When it comes to social media and advertising buys, people, in order to get their message out, they use channels like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram,
just
to be able to promote their messages.
And by the way, we found examples of this on both sides of the aisle here. There are no clean players here. But wouldn't it be refreshing if just one member of Congress would say, I'm not going to use a social media platform that I trash to fundraise off of? It would be refreshing.
Look, I got to tell you, you know, here's the deal, and this is a big challenge that conservatives face, because everyone's always like, oh, just build a whole new platform that you can compete with Facebook. The problem is the way it's all set up, the lack of regulation, and, you know, Republicans are a party that don't like regulations, is the fact that Facebook, there is no way to compete with the Facebook the way it's set up right now. They are they themselves are larger than many countries.
Yeah, they are the unregulated monopoly.
The amount of money they make.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, Mercedes, we got to move on.
Leland.
We got to move on. Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
As always.
Great to see you too.
All right. What we heard today is just one of the many examples surrounding Facebook. We know it's bad for kids' mental health. We know the company spies on us to sell advertisements. We know it highlights posts that make users angry. All this week, Facebook is the talk of every major network. Some of those conversations caught our attention. Colby Hall, founding editor of Mediaite, also a producer on Dan Abrams' show, which follows us. We're glad to have you, as always, Colby. Going through the media coverage today, Whoopi Goldberg had this to say on The View. Take a listen.
Billions of users lost their mind over the sudden outage of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Does the mass hysteria that this caused prove too many people may be relying on social media?
Okay, so therefore we should regulate social media, or we should let people make their own decisions?
Well, I think the headline here is that the animus towards Facebook and the outage that revealed our deep addiction has unified a bitterly divided nation. Pretty much everyone across the political spectrum right now is sort of coming to the conclusion that Facebook is bad. Now, it's a problem that doesn't really have a clear solution in my mind. I agree with Whoopi there that, I'm sure that worker productivity spiked dramatically yesterday while Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp were down. Do we break it up? I mean, that's an easy thing to say, but it's not at all clear. It's like breaking up water. It's a utility at this point, so it's not at all clear what that will look like, and I think it's too far gone to really just take it down. So there's no easy solution here. It's a big problem that we need to figure out.
If the issue, though, is to break it up, which is sort of the easy and very common talking point, does that make the problem better or worse? The more you break it up, the more incentive there is on each of these now broken up companies to be more Machiavellian in using their algorithms and manipulating us, right?
Right, I think exactly right. I think when you break it up, there's the risk that it will only increase the tribalization that has been so pernicious or so dangerous to our society to begin with. I think if I were in charge and I was the benevolent ruler of Facebook, I would change the algorithm. It's the artificial intelligence. They've forever been mining data. That was their core business proposition to sponsors. But what really went crazy is when they used AI or an algorithm to sort of optimize and maximize, content for their users. It was very divisive, but it was very profitable.
Yeah.
So I know that there were serious conversations about whether, like, hey, this is bad, but we're making a lot of money. What do we do? They went with the money.
Well, that's what businesses always do. They always go with the money. That's why you write stories about interesting things and not just fluffy puppies. Colby, great conversation. As always, great perspective. Thank you. Good to see you as always.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. See you next week. Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse for Facebook, the company is also dealing with another major problem: the cartels.
Human smuggling right now is their biggest commodity. They're making millions and millions of dollars a month.
In recent months, actually, we've seen an increase in smuggling organizations utilizing social media platforms.
The 425 migrant stash houses that we've encountered this year is about a 250% increase.
They'll pay the smugglers anywhere from $12,000 to $20,000.
Yeah, some of the people we encountered down on the border, it was $25,000. We can show you proof that Facebook is aware of smugglers using the site and absolutely doing nothing about it. The Tech Transparency Project posted dozens of pictures and videos of cartels advertising trips to the United States. Facebook's algorithm is even recommending these pages to users. Jorge Ventura is a border reporter for the Daily Caller and covered a lot of human smuggling from both sides of the border, joins us now. Jorge, have you talked to people who said, oh, I learned about how to get across the border, or I found my coyote on Facebook?
Yeah, Leland, that's the common answer when we speak to migrants. When we ask them where have they been organizing their mass communication, it's all on Facebook pages, on Facebook groups. WhatsApp is the huge tool for these migrants to communicate with human smugglers, with caravans, with cartels and their families back here in the United States who pay the human traffickers to come. So Facebook has been known for this for a while. Their algorithms push this, and there's no type of censorship when it comes to human traffickers. It almost enables more illegal migration into the United States.
Yeah, it's interesting because Facebook has been so concerned about certain types of activity and political speech that they censor quite proactively. You wonder if they could censor this as well. You were on the border during the first Haitian migration under the Del Rio Bridge, 15,000 people, and reported that WhatsApp was the way they all communicated. This is from the Washington Examiner now. Texas braces for surge of 60,000 Haitian migrants coming up through Mexico right now. I know you're on top of this and reporting on it. What are you hearing about it?
So right now, Leland, what our sources is telling us that, right now the state of Texas is bracing for 60,000 Haitian migrants. NBC News actually reported earlier that the month of October, we could see up to 400,000 migrants reach the southern border and overwhelming those border towns. Well, right now, Leland, we're actually already seeing some of those Haitian migrants reach the United States. Right now, Yuma, Arizona, that Yuma sector is getting hit very hard right now with Haitians coming from South America, from Venezuelans, and from Central Americans. Just the month of August, agents down there in Yuma accounted over 17,000 migrants. Compare that month of August to in 2020, where they only encountered 694. So agents have already seen a 2,000% increase. Wow. They're saying the majority are Haitians. But the worst part, Leland, is when I'm speaking to Border Patrol sources in the Yuma sectors, they're saying that the worst is yet to come. They're expecting more migrants. They're actually calling in more Border Patrol agents from different sectors to come to that Yuma section. Now that kind of actually should be very worrying for citizens, because when this happens, it leaves the rest of the border unmanned. We saw that last month in late September, where Texas was forced to call up 400 extra Border Patrol agents, also 1,000 extra state troopers, meaning that there was several Border Patrol checkpoints that remain unmanned. So right now, that Yuma sector is feeling that Haitian wave.
And at least as far as we know from your reporting, those coming are communicating on Facebook and WhatsApp. Jorge, great reporting as always. I know you're heading back down to the border, and we'll check in when you get there.
Thanks, Leland.
Thank you. President Biden spent the day in Michigan not talking about Facebook. He's pushing his Build Back Better agenda. Why is Lunchbox Joe focusing on his traditional base? Plus, companies threatening to leave America's major cities because of violent crime. Will a CEO's threat get mayors and district attorneys to finally take action?
If they do not feel like the criminal justice system is going to hold them accountable, we're going to see a level of brazenness that will send this city into chaos.
That's Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot slamming the state attorney for not pressing charges against the suspects arrested in a deadly gang shootout last week. Here's the video of the shootout. Lightfoot saying that not charging them sends the wrong message to lawbreakers in the city. This comes amid a sobering warning from Illinois' richest man on Chicago's crime epidemic. Billionaire Ken Griffin, who runs the hedge fund Citadel, says he may be forced to move his company's headquarters out of the Windy City over the endless mayhem, saying Chicago is now, quote, like Afghanistan on a good day, and revealing someone tried to carjack the security detail outside his house. Also said he saw 25 bullet shots in the glass window of a retail space in the building he lives in. We bring in Philip Levine, former mayor of Miami Beach, another city currently being plagued by crime. Good to see you, sir. Appreciate it. Miami Beach almost, though, is a double whammy because you guys rely on both tourism and people moving down from cities like Chicago. If Miami Beach has got a crime problem, that sort of takes away part of the appeal, right?
I absolutely agree with you, Leland. What's interesting about our city is that crime is happening in a very isolated area called the entertainment zone. This area is serving liquor till 5 a.m. And there's a movement now in our city to shut the liquor off at 2 a.m. And that's something that has to happen because, like you just said, if your city's not safe, how could you bring companies? How could you bring people that want to move there? And our city is taking some very aggressive actions right now.
Yeah, we're watching video from some of the mayhem over last spring break, and now we're gearing up for busy season down in Miami Beach once again. This stuff doesn't happen in an instant, and it's pretty hard to turn off in an instant. How long can you deal? How long is it going to take to turn this around?
Well, we have a few things we have to do. Number one, we got to limit and try to get that Airbnb, which is a cancer to any community, under control. We need to empower our police department, get our elected leaders behind them so they can enforce the laws. Listen, we're having an election right now in Miami Beach. We have a couple of candidates that are running on law enforcement, very similar to what Eric Adams did in New York City in one. You have one candidate, Melissa Beatty, who's running, another one, Raquel Pacheco, and they're saying that how could you have enforcement in an entertainment district and at the same time give law and order to people that live in other parts of our city who are utilizing 911 and expect them to show up. So it's kind of a tourist versus residents situation in our community right now.
Yeah, and also the competing interests of the businesses who rely on the tourism and the people who want to live there. Back here to Chicago, where crime continues to run out of control. We had the state's attorney on for Chicago a couple of months ago who says, gee, it's not my fault I can't charge all these people. Take a listen.
Our job is not simply to make an arrest, but it is also to get a conviction. And in an effort to get in a conviction, we must make sure that the evidence is held in the highest integrity.
Okay.
We have the same thing happening in Miami right now. We have police officers making legitimate arrests, and it's becoming a revolving door through the attorney's office, where basically they're coming right back on the street. And that is so frustrating for our police department and for our elected leaders and our mayor. How can you clean things up if you can't keep them in jail or at least make the charges stick?
All right. Well, when you were mayor down in Miami Beach, I was a frequent visitor, enjoyed it, and never seemed to have any of the crime problems that it has now. What was the answer? And again, to give advice to Chicago, it's going to take a long time to turn this around.
It's going to take some time, but the reality is that we need elected leaders that will stand up, that will do the right thing, that just don't want to get reelected, that actually want to make change. And making change is not easy, but you need your police force to not to be defunded, but to be fully funded. And that's what we need to go forward with.
The radical centrist former mayor of Miami Beach, Philip Levine, good to see you as always, sir.
Thank you.
All the best. Taylor Swift is playing a big role in Virginia's gubernatorial race, but she is yet to comment on either candidate. We're going to show you how the singer's fans are being weaponized for the ballot box. And did Nancy Pelosi just suffer her first major loss as Speaker? Who really now has the power in the Democratic Party? Hint, where Joe Biden was today might tell us.
Look, I know there's a lot of noise in Washington, there always is, but it seems to me a little more than usual now. We have to choose what direction we're going to go, what we're going to do, not Democrat, Republican, but who we're going to be.
All right, President Biden hitting the road today, pushing his spending plans and his agenda as his agenda stalls on Capitol Hill. The president went to Howell, Michigan. That's a county that voted for President Trump in 2020. And he's trying to court moderates that were originally his base. Polls show, though, that the president's support is plummeting among swing voters. We bring in Philip Wegman, Real Clear Politics White House correspondent. Michigan is not a coincidence, was it?
Not a coincidence at all. Obviously, that's a state that the president is going to need to win if he wants a second term in the White House. And also, it is a good dovetail for this administration because they can point to Governor Gretchen Whitmer there, and they can say, look, she promised to be the fix the damn roads governor, and that's what we're trying to do with the presidency. The only problem is that it's easier said than done. Currently, both packages, both the reconciliation package and the infrastructure package, are stuck in Congress, and it very much is Republican versus Democrat, and also Democrat on Democrat between moderates and progressives who are still bickering about what's going to be in the final legislative text.
Yeah, you think about, and the president's alluded to this, that the real issue for his agenda is Democrat on Democrat, of progressives and moderates within the Democratic Party arguing they control everything right now. Does this kind of speech in this place have an effect on Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema's vote?
I doubt that it does, because so far the overtures, the carrots, and the sticks from this administration haven't gotten Manchin or Sinema to move. There seems to be a recognition in Washington right now among both progressives and moderates that the $3.5 trillion mark for the reconciliation package is eventually going to come down, but we don't know by how much. And I think that the chances of a speech in Michigan getting either of those senators to concede on the top line numbers seems, pretty far-fetched. But, it was a good photo op for this administration. And it shows that the president is actually out there trying to sell his agenda. Whether or not that actually moves votes, we'll see, but it seems unlikely.
Michigan has the 11th highest number of union jobs in America, 600,000 or so union members in Michigan. Obviously, Lunchbox Joe, Scranton Joe, union members are his guys. That's who he spoke to a little bit in his speech. Take a listen.
Good union jobs, not $12, $15, $18 prevailing wage jobs. Wage that give you dignity, that you can raise a family on, that you can hold your head up. This is a blue-collar blueprint for how we restore America's pride. And these are jobs that can't be outsourced.
Who is the White House talking to in the sense that at least I haven't seen a lot of the big union reps out there and the big unions getting behind this Build Back Better plan and saying this is what's going to save unions in America?
Yeah, the rhetoric about unions is bread and butter for Biden. Remember, that was a core constituency for him during the campaign and also during the primaries. It's actually one of the things that helped him survive some of the early states when you saw the electorate swinging for more, extreme candidates than him. So I think that this is sort of back in his wheelhouse. What's interesting, though, is that he's talking about the infrastructure plan that just recently you had progressives in the House lobby against because they wanted to secure a vote on the much larger reconciliation package. So it's an issue where it seems that the moderates are certainly on his side when it comes to the infrastructure plan, which both Republicans and Democrats support. The question is whether or not those same moderates are going to get behind the much larger package.
Right.
And so far, again, it doesn't seem like this speech moves Sinema or Manchin.
Right, but why haven't we seen the head of the AFL-CIO, the head of the unions that would benefit the most from the infrastructure plan, rallying for it, pushing for it, and saying, look, pass that and we'll deal with the $3.5 trillion bill later?
Yeah, certainly we've had plenty of union representatives come to the White House. Most recently, I think it was for a exhibition on electric vehicles in the South Lawn earlier this summer. But I think that the hesitancy that you're noting there is a reflection of the fact that we don't know if either of these bills are actually going to get passed. You see that the Democrats are sort of trending in the right direction, but this is far from certain that the Biden administration actually gets something done. And they know the stakes here. They know, for instance, that this might be their last chance to get something to the finish line when Democrats still control Congress.
Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about next, so a good place to leave the conversation. Great reporting, as always, on Real Clear Politics. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Leland.
Thank you. President Biden's team was portrayed as the adults in the room who would bring back normalcy to Washington, but now it's the far-left Democrats clearly taking the wheel, forcing House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, as we've reported, to delay a vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Fox News headline puts it this way: Pelosi handed major defeat by rising progressive stars as Biden agenda put on ice. Joining us now, Steve Israel, former chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Good to see you, Congressman. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. I'm guessing you would not like to be the current chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee.
Well, all these gray hairs came when I was the chair of the DCCC. That comes with the job. Look, the Democrats in the House and the Senate, my former colleagues, they know that they've got to get this done. This midterm election is going to be hard enough. They've got a 3-vote majority. And midterms in a president's first term, as you know, are not historically kind to the president's party. The path is difficult, it's doable, but they know that they've got to get these infrastructure bills done. Will it be 3.5 trillion or 1.2 trillion? They're going to continue to negotiate that. They're in overtime right now. But in my conversations with my former colleagues on both sides of the Democratic caucus, progressives and moderates, there is a sense that we just have to get to yes one way or the other.
Right, and there wasn't that sense when Nancy Pelosi scheduled all the votes and we were going to get all this done last week?
Well, look, that is how Speaker Pelosi operates. I was her chief political lieutenant for 4 years, and she understands that.
Were you a little surprised, though, that she came up so short after promising so much?
I would say two things. A great question. First, I'm not really surprised because this is what happens when you try and affix a big, bold, aspirational policy to a 3-vote majority in the House and a 1-vote majority in the Senate. This is not like FDR's New Deal, where he had hundreds of votes that he could spare in the House and many votes he could spare in the Senate. This is razor thin. So when you try and pass this big, bold, generational legislation, you've got 3 votes to spare. Guess what? It's going to be hard. The other thing I know about Nancy Pelosi is if she can't get it done, you remember the Affordable Care Act, right? Everybody was saying it's dead, votes were scheduled, they were put off. It got done.
It did.
She will get it done one way or the other.
The other thing that you got to get done is the debt ceiling. That comes before any of this. Here is Chuck Schumer on that.
We can bring this Republican-manufactured debt ceiling crisis to a swift end, or Republicans can keep barreling our country ever closer to the first default in American history.
Isn't it kind of hard to blame Republicans when you control the House, the Senate, and the White House?
Well, except that this debt is part of their votes. I mean, much of this debt occurred in the Trump administration under Republican Congress. Look, let's take the partisanship out of this. The fact of the matter is that there's not a single viewer of your program, Leland, who gets to put stuff on the credit card and then call the credit card company and say, you know, it's really over my budget. I've decided not to pay. This debt is cumulative. And it is bipartisan. Yeah. Republicans, increase the debt.
We've driven to this cliff a number of times. One wonders why we keep doing it that way. We got to leave it there. We're a little tight on time, Steve, but thank you and great conversation.
Thanks, man.
All right, thank you. The IRS is set to get a bump in funding, and also it's going to be able to look into your bank accounts, perhaps. Will that lead to more taxes being collected or just ruin all of our privacy? Now, in order to pay for his massive Build Back Better plan that we've been talking about, President Biden has proposed giving the IRS enormous amounts of information about your spending habits and stripping away a lot of Americans' privacy. Here are some highlights from the proposal. Banks would be required to report customers' transactions of $600 or more every year. Businesses would have to alert the IRS to cryptocurrency transactions of more than $10,000. And entities like PayPal would also be subjected to additional reporting requirements. This is in addition to massive new funding of the IRS to hire more auditors. Ethan Behrman, liberal radio host, Ian Samuel, former law clerk for the late Justice Antonin Scalia. Gentlemen, good to see you as always. Ian, I would have thought as a former law clerk for Scalia, you'd be firmly against this, but you don't seem to mind it.
Well, I mean, I don't, and I'll tell you why. Because I think one thing you said is not accurate. It's not that the IRS would collect transactions of $600 or more. It's that for bank accounts that have at least $600 in them, the bank would be required to report at the end of the tax year the total number of deposits and the total number of withdrawals, into aggregate figures, to the IRS. It's not that they would report transaction level data. That I would be against. I would have a big problem with. But my understanding of this proposal, and it is just a proposal, Congress would have to ratify this. Right. My understanding of the proposal is that it does not do that.
All right, Ethan, at the same level, how much information are we going to give to the IRS on this slippery slope?
Yeah, I think it's problematic, even if it's at that aggregate level like Ian just mentioned. That still is problematic because, as we know, over these last 10 years of social media companies, metadata matters, and the ability of the government to use that metadata, if it's at the metadata level, is deeply problematic. And I see it as a further encroachment of our Fourth Amendment rights that has been happening steadily and being eroded over the last 20 years anyway. But overall, I mean, look, again, if we're going to get tax cheats, let's get them, but let's stay focused on who we think the cheats are. Let's not just do a wide net and vacuum up all the data on Americans in databases I'm not confident will be secured.
Thomas Honig, speaking of the not secured, you just have to look at the ProPublica leaks of all sorts of famous people's bank IRS records to know that it could happen to anybody. This is what Thomas Honig had to say over on Fox Business. Take a listen.
It's still be incredibly intrusive. And it's a massive search without a search warrant. I think it really will cause the public to have even less trust in our government institutions because, very simply, If you're intruding into everything, you want to avoid that. You become very cynical about the rule of law, and I think it undermines confidence of the American people in its institutions.
Ian, I'm seeing a skeptical look on your face.
Well, yes, because for one thing, the proposal, I don't know what our friend Ethan means when he says the government is collecting metadata. It's collecting basically two numbers: total number of deposits, total number of withdrawals. The other thing that's strange from the clip you just played is it has been settled law for like 50 years that actually it is not a Fourth Amendment search to acquire even transaction data from banks. Now, I actually think that's wrong. I think that position is wrongly decided and should be overruled. But it is just not the case that there is a significant intrusion on privacy here, because remember, you have to report your income, all of it, to the IRS already. And I don't know where you'd be putting that income other than in your bank account.
Well,
So
I guess the question is,
unclear to
Ethan,
me.
is this going to just lead people to start putting more money under their mattresses?
Yeah, well, I mean, it does drive some people away and back toward either a cash economy that we've seen has been slowly eroding because it's convenient. It's easy for me to use my check, my debit card, my credit card for everything, my PayPal account, whatever that might be. But there will be some people who will be see this as a major problem. And Ian and I must have read this slightly differently, because I didn't see it as just a transaction count. I saw it as transaction volumes and dollar amounts that were included in that. So maybe we need to get clarification on what they were proposing. Remember, the Democrats have actually pulled back on this in Congress anyway, and we need to keep the focus here. The point is of all of this is to get the tax cheats. We have the most complicated tax code, 75,000 pages roughly, and it is ripe for very smart lawyers, very smart accountants, those with the means to pay those smart accountants and lawyers on how to maneuver around our tax laws so they're not paying what they're supposed to be paying, at least in terms of our tax rates. And Congress refuses to address that. That's the huge elephant in the room, is why do we allow the wealthy to continue to evade our tax policies instead of going after every single American, which is what this other proposal seems to be doing?
Ian, as I read it, maybe you're both right, but that at some point, if you have more than $600 in your account, or if you transact more than $600 at any time during the year, then the bank has to report to the IRS your data. They already do report interest on your account if it's more than $10 in interest over the year. But doesn't Ethan have a point here that the IRS is big enough as it is? Do they really need more information on us?
Well, this actually would help the IRS get smaller, because what this is an alternative
but that's not what's happening.
audits.
But that's not what's happening. They're proposing to add to the IRS.
No, this would subtract the number of people you need at the IRS, because this is an alternative to audits, which take a lot of people. This is an ability to get those tax cheats that Ethan was talking about without having to individually audit so many people, which requires a lot of manpower. I don't have a problem with people working for the tax collectors. I mean, I don't like paying them any more than you do. But if you want to get tax cheats with as few IRS employees as possible, you want data like this rather than having to manually audit.
Interesting argument, although the current bill includes an enormous amount of money, tens of millions, if not more, to hire additional agents for IRS enforcement. So go with that.
It does, although that's separate. That's true, but that's a separate matter, and you could split those up.
Rarely is anything split in D.C., especially these days, but fair point. Ethan, Ian, good to see you both. Thank you.
Thanks, Leland.
All right. Evidently, I am told, Taylor Swift's dedicated fans are called the Swifties, and they are up in arms over a Virginia governor candidate. Will he be able to shake it off? Find out how the Swifties are being weaponized next.
More Central on News Nation.
Singer-songwriter Taylor Swift. Yes, even I have heard of her. Sometimes speaks about politics, but in this case, she's playing a big role in the Virginia's governor's race while staying silent. Democratic candidate Terry McAuliffe has launched a series of social media ads criticizing his opponent's role in purchasing Swift's master recordings. Republican Glenn Youngkin's company, Carlyle, helped Scooter Braun make that purchase, which made it difficult for Swift to perform music from her early career. The contentious purchase of the recordings was a flashpoint for Swift's army of devoted fans known as the Swifties. And now McAuliffe is hoping the Swifties' bad blood will help push him over the edge in November. Right now, 48-41 latest polls, although it evidently is getting tighter than that. Elizabeth Wagmeister, senior correspondent with Variety, joins us now. Are the Swifties really dedicated enough to actually vote on this issue?
You know, it's interesting because you would think that they would be. Taylor Swift has one of the most rabid, most passionate fan bases in entertainment, but we all remember that when Taylor Swift was rallying very hard against Marsha Blackburn from her home state of Tennessee, that did not go the way that she anticipated. It's interesting because Taylor Swift, she infamously was not political for years. She, of course, broke out on the scene as a young teenager, and it's just really in the last year or two that she started using her platform to speak out against politics. And last time, again, didn't go in her favor, but the Swifties, as they are called, they are very strong, so time will tell.
All right, so this is one of the tweets from McAuliffe, who was the governor, then was term limited, and then is now coming back. Taylor Swift is re-recording her early albums because of a malicious deal financed by VA Gov candidate Glenn Youngkin's Carlyle Group. This is not exactly why we elect Dem governors, but it's definitely part of it. Interestingly enough, Taylor Swift herself hasn't spoken out on this. Did she learn a lesson from Tennessee?
Maybe. She has not spoken out against it. I would be interested to know if she had any part or any awareness of this campaign. As we know, though, Taylor Swift, she spoke out a lot about her master. She was very upset about it. If there is going to be any topic that will get her fans riled up and might get them to the polls, it would be this. The only other thing might be Kanye West. That's really the only two things that seems to get them very, very angry. But, you know, it's always a toss-up if there is a link between getting people to the polls and those celebrities that they follow. Sometimes it works, but most of the times it doesn't.
You know, that's where I wanted to go next. Zoom out. We're obviously the Virginia governor's race off cycle, so it's coming up in less than a month. But we're heading into the 2022 midterms. What are you hearing about celebrities in general who were so galvanized to come out and fight and take on President Trump so vocally? Is that going to continue with going after Republicans and being political, or have celebrities decided that that can hurt their brand?
You know, I don't think that it will slow down, but I don't think it'll be as loud as it was during the Trump administration. We have heard a lot less from Hollywood in general since Biden has taken office. I think that it was kind of on trend to speak out against Trump, and that's why everybody was doing it, because it was a safe thing to be able to speak out against someone that everybody in the community was speaking out against. With Biden, there's not much that we hear, by the way, good or bad, from Hollywood. It's certainly much more quiet, but I think that as we do head towards the midterms, Hollywood will certainly speak up on the issues that really matter to them. So I think that we will hear more. Yeah. I don't think there's as much of a fear of hurting the
fair point. They did speak out about the Texas abortion ban a little bit. Elizabeth, thank you so much. We got to run. Great show. We'll see you tomorrow night. Dan Abrams is next.